Labą dieną, mėly pranešėjai, svečiai.
Good afternoon, participants of the conference, both participating live and online. Now we are starting with the second part of the conference and section B, during which we are going to speak about the experience of public sector in the context of resilience. And I'm very happy that colleagues from the United States, Poland, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and Lithuania will share their experience. We are very happy that we can debate on very topical questions. Today's A section will be moderated by me, Rimantė Giedraitytė, Associate Professor from the General Jonas Žemaitis Military Academy of Lithuania, and Jonas Balskys, as well as Aleksandras Patapas, Head of the Public Administration Study Programs at Mykolas Romeris University. Our section will be an online one. Therefore, those who have joined us on the Zoom platform will be able to hear interpretation from the Lithuanian language. Those who watch the conference on YouTube can give questions on the slide.com platform during the debate. I believe we can start already. The colleague from the United States of America. We have the keynote speaker, Dr. Karl Gabrini from Dalton State College's Wright School of Business. Doctor is going to speak about testing local government resilience, surviving the pandemic of 2020 in Whitfield County, Georgia. Dear Gabrini, the floor is yours.
Yes, good morning. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Good afternoon there. It's very early in the morning here in the United States, at least the part that I'm in. So forgive me if I still have sleepers in my eyes. The pandemic here in the United States, as I'm sure it was in the rest of the world, was traumatic for a lot of people. As a matter of fact, on the kind of coming out of it on the back end, we're still kind of suffering a little bit. I think there's a lot of stress and anxiety kind of post-pandemic. I notice it exists with a lot of our students. Where I'm located, for those of you maybe that need a little geography, we're in the East Coast of the United States and located in the Southeast. And Dalton is located in the northwest corner of our state. We're located in the mountainous regions in Georgia, which leaves us with a very pleasant environment to live in. But it also ended up being one of the hot spots for COVID-19 infections relative to the size of our population. So we were hit very hard. I was interviewed by a local reporter who wanted to get a sense for the economic cost of the pandemic, and this was in August of 2020. So the pandemic had been going on for about 6 months at that point. And I went to do a little bit of research on some of the financial issues. And the one that I focused on the most was sales tax collections, which is one of the ways that we use to assess consumer behavior. And I was surprised to see that our sales tax collections had not tapered off to the degree that we would have expected, given all of the, I guess, the trauma from the pandemic. And of course, tourism suffered because people could not travel. So our hotel motel tax collections had gone down significantly during that time period. But sales tax collections had actually gone up, even though we had gone through periods of shutdown and shelter in place. And after reflecting on it, I guess kind of post-pandemic and asking some questions, I think one of the things that became apparent to me is that, one, even though the pandemic was a major event and there were a lot of things that maybe we didn't know, we had been through pandemics before, and we had been through events like this. There was the fiscal crisis that we faced in the 2000s. And by far, the fiscal crisis in this part of the country, here in Whitfield County and Dalton, Georgia, hit us particularly hard. And so I think we learned a lot of lessons going through those previous events that kind of helped us in terms of moderating the effects of the pandemic here. One, there was a lot of collaboration that occurred between levels of government. The federal government, for all of the, I guess, hype that existed here in this country from the federal level, from the president's office, the public servants and the executive agencies and Congress were quick to react and make funds available through various programs that already existed. They were able to get those funds to the local governments through states. And the local governments were very effective at getting those funds to local businesses and to citizens. And that, in large measure, probably explained why we did not see the reduction in sales tax collections. The way our sales tax works here is there's about a 30-day lag from the time that sales taxes are collected and when they're remitted back to the individual local governments. So it's a pretty responsive measure, given that it's only 30 days. At any rate, the reaction of consumers, they kept making purchases and kept buying things. As a matter of fact, we've run into a lot of problems with shortages now here in the United States. There are certain products that are hard to get a hold of. What we found is with so many people sheltering in place, they began home improvement projects. So trying to get a contractor to come and take care of anything at your home became a real problem. They got so booked up right now, it's about a 7-month backlog before you can get somebody to come and even take a look at any kind of problems you might be having or any improvements you want to make. So I think folks having to spend time at home ended up spending a lot of time looking around at what they needed to fix and repair at their own residences. The other area that I saw that kicked in was, I guess, what the rest of the world calls non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, that we call not-for-profits. The not-for-profit sector here in the United States also kind of kicked in and worked hand in hand with the local governments in terms of trying to take care of things. I know the church I belong to, we were very active in helping to provide food for those that were out of work, because unemployment spiked from about 5.2% to about 20% in our particular area. So we had quite a number of people that were out of work and therefore unable necessarily to get the basics in life. And so the churches responded by having food drives, and folks would basically show up at specified locations and we would have packaged goods ready for them to go. And so it'd be kind of a lineup, and they drive through and then be handed out packages of food so they get by from week to week and month to month. I know my wife, she worked as part of that group. And so I saw what we saw during the pandemic was that it wasn't just it wasn't just one avenue of response. It was multiple groups working in concert with one another, and the collaboration worked really well. Of course, nothing is perfect, but considering on the back end how much worse it could have been, the collaboration between local governments, state government, federal government, and those not-for-profits worked really, really well. The funding issues came through something called the Community Development Block Grant Program. Congress had tacked on additional funding that they labeled CARES, C-A-R-E-S funding. And through that, they were able to channel money that could be used for both grants and loans to individuals and local businesses to keep them afloat. Although we did lose quite a few businesses, many were saved because of those available funds. They were able to stay in operation. So I think for me, in terms of what I'm hoping to get out of this, is I want to be able to work with the local leadership here and try to gather up some of the lessons learned. I'm hoping to spend some time talking with particularly our chief financial officer here in Dalton and the city of Dalton, and trying to understand what takeaways they have, what additional improvements they are going to make to be able to respond in the future. Because I certainly doubt that this is going to be the last time we end up having to face something of this magnitude. I don't think anybody here that I've talked to hasn't been personally affected by this. I know I lost several relatives to the pandemic. And so it's when I think about it, sometimes it causes me to be very reflective on those that won't be around anymore.
I'm sorry, dear Carl, we cannot see your slides. Maybe you can share your slides, please.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Whether people were going to be using them or not. So hold on a second. I can.
Okay. Oh, we can see now.
You can see it now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so you see my
Thank
cup
you.
of coffee there, right?
Yes, thank you. You can
Let's
continue.
see here. Yeah, this is Georgia. I picked up this particular map just because it kind of gives you a good idea. We're up in that brown and purple region. That's where we're located. And so we're right between what they call the Appalachian Plateau and the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's a beautiful part of the country. But for being a kind of a small community, we're about 104,000 people in our particular area. But for being such a beautiful part of the country, we also experience the highs and lows of the pandemic, and also of the political culture that's going on in this country. We're in a very, very conservative, politically speaking, neck of the woods here. And so we're kind of at the forefront of some of the political unrest that's occurring inside the United States. Oddly enough. And again, this map here just shows you the divisions. These are all the counties that exist within the state of Georgia. Of course, our states, most of them, I believe 48 of the 50 states are divided up into counties. Georgia went crazy with counties. They really subdivided themselves a lot. I believe Georgia has more counties than many of the states have. And that dotted line across the map shows you what we call the fall line, which is where the snow line is. So if you're north of that, above the line, you are likely to see snow in the wintertime. If you're below the line, you're unlikely to see snow. And Atlanta is located above the fall line in Fulton County, which is in kind of the center of the northern part of the map. And then we're all the way up in Whitfield County. We border the state of Tennessee.
And I'm sorry again, because we don't see your slides moving. Maybe you should just... yes, I think that...
Did it move at all?
They are not moving here.
So you're stuck on which one?
We don't know. Maybe on the map.
On the map? Yeah, that's
We're
fine. That's fine.
now on the first one. Yes. Maybe just try to open once more. Again.
So is it still showing the map?
No, we see just the first slide now.
The
Cup
coffee.
of coffee, yeah.
I'm thinking this is a time delay. So did it change at all?
No.
Yeah, I'm going to try to unshare and reshare.
Yeah. Just try to reshare.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Yeah, can you still hear me?
Oh, we can hear you. Just maybe you can
Okay.
talk without the slides. It's okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. They're seeing Zoom is acting up.
Yeah.
I'm getting some strange error messages telling me to report these things to Zoom.
Okay. So we will
Typical.
listen you. Okay.
So at any rate, again, in the way things kind of worked here, we saw our first cases were reported here in Georgia for the pandemic were reported on March 2nd of 2020. And our first case reported here in Whitfield County occurred at the end of the month. It was March 27th of 2020 when we had our first case here. The full effect of the pandemic, total cases in Georgia were almost 2 million. It was 1.95 million total cases with almost 38,000 deaths in a population of 10.8 million. And in Whitfield County, we had a population of 104,000. We had nearly 34,000 total reported cases and 400 deaths that occurred due to the pandemic. So it was definitely a traumatic episode. During this period, by the end of March, the governor had ordered closed all of the bars and clubs to be shut down because they identified those as being places where mass infections were occurring. And then April 1st, about a week later, the governor shut down all the schools. And so that impacted us, of course, because we went to remote learning at that point, which was kind of an interesting experience to be thrust into having to move from our face-to-face in classes to going online. Many of us hadn't taught online before. And so we had to quickly adjust to the new technologies as well as our students. And our school here at Dalton State, we teach a lot of first generation college students. And they also are Hispanic students. So we have very high Latino student background because of the flooring industry here in the Northeast. They seem to have congregated in our area. By May 1st, the things started to ease back up. The shelter-in-place order that the governor had put in place on April 1st ended, but the pandemic continued. We didn't actually get back to face-to-face classes at our school until the fall of 2021. And so this thing seemed to just drag on for a good 18 months. In terms of, again, the resilience, the city just by way of example, our city received $1.8 million US dollars in federal funds to help us during the pandemic. And that money came in a couple of different payments to us. And we were able to use those again to support the local governments. Again, our employment has rebounded. Again, it reached a high of about almost 21%. It's down now to under 6%. We're at about 5.5%. And as a matter of fact, there's lots of jobs available. Right now, our students are being hired up as fast as we can get them graduated. So, in terms of resilience, we're seeing that the economy here is snapped back pretty strong. And again, I suspect that a large part of that is the diverse economy we have in the northwest part of the state. We're heavy manufacturing. We've got automotive manufacturing. We have distribution centers for Amazon and several other major companies. And then a lot of the flooring that's manufactured here in the United States, carpeting and tile and various things are manufactured within about a 50-mile radius of where I'm sitting right now. And so Shaw, Mohawk, and Engineered Floors are the three major employers in our area. And so I think the combination of all of that really kind of helped us quite a bit. So even though we're rural, we have a very strong economy. And they learned a lot going through the financial crisis of the 2000s, which really crippled the area. And it only recovered. I moved here in 2017, and it was still coming out of the financial troubles that they had from the 2000s crisis. That was the financial housing market crisis. Again, I wish I could show you the slides here, and I did send slides to folks over there. So if anybody is interested, I have links to the sales tax distributions data that I used Tableau to do my analysis with. And then a lot of the background information that I've been picking up, I get from our city's finance department. And so I've got a link to the finance department and the information that they produce. And again, this is a kind of a new topic for me. I'm just looking into it. And so I'm hoping to delve into this some more. What I learned, the papers that have been published the last few years, is that resilience, or the topic of resilience, is kind of new to public administration in terms of its application outside of kind of social and environmental issues. And so I'm kind of interested to see what I'm able to do with this, and again, me being kind of a transplant, I was not always an academic. I was an auditor for the state of Florida. I worked for the Auditor General's office there and spent most of my time auditing state agencies and state programs. And so academic research was kind of new to me. So more boots on the ground, I guess. So I think that's about all I have. I don't know if...
Ačiū. Gal būtų klausimų?
Thank you. Maybe there are questions from the audience.
Iš tikrųjų, mes šiandien ryte...
Today, in the morning, in the plenary session, we discussed a lot about the Lithuanian experience. We also had a presentation from Norway comparing crisis management in Sweden and Norway. It was interesting to listen to the experience from the United States. So I have a question.
Vietos savivaldos institucijoms reaguojant į pandemiją buvo svarbus visuomenės indėlis.
Well, was the input of civil society important to local authorities in addressing the crisis? What was the input of the civil society organizations? Do you have any data on that?
I don't know if we have data at the local level on this, but the way local government works here is it's very participative. All of our meetings are open so that even during the pandemic, while there was limited access, a lot of the meetings went online and people were able to participate online, and folks are frequent writers, emails coming in. So, and most of our local leaders live in the communities, and so they interact with folks on a regular basis. So there's a lot of information exchange that occurs at the local level. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, that's always a trouble spot to try to collect data on the exact amount and nature of that conversation that occurs, because it is so informal. But it exists, it's there, and it does play a role. And yeah, we've got various boards that exist. Myself, I volunteer a significant amount of time to a group called the United Way. And the United Way essentially acts as a conduit to collect funding that is then redistributed to not-for-profits throughout our region. And so the role I play is I work on panels that oversee the agency requests that are coming into us. And so we'll be given an allotment of funds, and then we have to determine how to divide those funds between the different agencies that apply. And so we receive budgets from them. And so there's a lot that goes on between the not-for-profit world and the local government world, and they're constantly in conversation with one another. So it's pretty fluid. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Well, the next question is, you continued about the about the cooperation between different sectors. In the morning, we discussed a lot about the cooperation and involvement of business sector and NGOs, and you actually shared your experience on that. Is business involved in local authorities' way of addressing different crises?
Yeah, very much so. Considering that many of our local leaders are local business people that run for office. As a matter of fact, the current chairman of Whitfield County's commission is actually a local businessman. He runs a True Value hardware store in one of the cities that neighbors us. There are several cities that make up Whitfield County. And so I met him through United Way. And this is what I mean. There's so much cross-pollination that goes on, so that my activities in United Way, I come across people who are actively running for political offices at the local level. As a matter of fact, even though I work for the state of Georgia as an educator in the college system, while I can't run for state office or for national office because of conflict of interest, I would have to resign my position. They do allow you to run and serve at the local level. So things like this, we have school boards that are elected offices in addition to county and city governments that are elected offices. And so they're just normal folks, just like me. As a matter of fact, our church pastor, he's on the school board. So lots of cross-pollination occurs. And so, yeah, there's definitely a carryover from folks that run business. As a matter of fact, the current county commissioner has some very strong leanings that are heavily influenced by his background in the private sector. So he comes in with a very strong business background.
Thank you. One more question, if we may, from the audience and from a different field. What do you think What competencies in the public sector are essential in dealing with such crises as the pandemic? Is psychological resilience more important than physical resilience? Or is it competencies related to risk management, organization, and working in uncertainties? What is more important, competences of psychological and physical resilience or the competences of risk management?
That's a good question. I think, myself in terms of looking at how individuals are dealing with this situation, how I had served at one point as a volunteer firefighter in communities I had lived in previously. And so I became kind of acutely aware of the kinds of qualities or characteristics that were important in terms of being able to deal with situations. And I think it isn't a matter of which one is more important. Is there one that's more important than the other? It's more the ability to be able to balance them all. So can you be psychologically strong enough to do the things you need to do? Can you keep your wits about you? Do you have the technical competence in addition to the psychological strength, the emotional strength? I like the mindfulness theory about being able to stay in the moment, because you've got to be able to make decisions and make them based on limited amounts of information. You're never going to have an opportunity to sit there and weigh everything out in terms of a crisis. So you're going to have to rely heavily on the training that you've received, your ability to remain calm under the circumstances and kind of read the situation as it's being presented to you, and then being able to make decisions and stick with them and push forward. So I think it's a combination of those things.
Ačiū labai Jums.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carl Gabrini, for your insights. So we have no more questions from the audience. We thank you very much.
Well, thank you. This has been kind of an honor to be able to
Thank you.
participate. So,
Thank you very much.
sorry it didn't go perfectly well, but I really do appreciate being able to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Taip, ir toliau turime.
Now we have our next presenter, and the presentation is made in a video recording. It is made by Professor Dr. Robert Gawlowski, and his presentation is on migration crisis as a challenge for local government in Poland, preliminary lessons and agenda for the future. I want to add Professor Gawlowski was not able to participate because in Poland they celebrate the May 3rd Constitution events. So he has sent us a recording.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Gawlowski, and I prepare some short presentation about migration situation in Poland. At the beginning, I'd like to thank organizers that they allow me to record my presentation. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend in person in conference as well as in Zoom. So I'm really appreciated that this form of my presentation is possible. The topic of my presentation is migration crisis as a challenge for local government in Poland, and some preliminary lessons and agenda for the future. I'd like to divide my presentation into two parts. The first part is focus on data that draw a picture about the situation in Poland during last 3 months. And in the second part, I'd like to draw your attention to recommendation and what does it mean for public administration and local government in Poland. So let me start from the first point. What can we say about the migration crisis in Poland after the outbreak of Russian aggression in Ukraine? Poland is facing the biggest migration crisis in Europe, for sure. At the time being, more than 3 million Ukrainians moved to Poland, and Polish public administration has to face this challenge day in and day out in this long time, and actually it's hard to predict how long it will take. So I collect some information from national local government associations, because that's the best level to collect information and draw a picture about this situation. So what we can say after this 2.5 months, Ukrainians mostly move to the biggest Polish cities. So they choose those cities that they know, those cities that they have relatives, friends, or the third option is just by accident, because they find some kind of help from Polish society. So at the time being, as I said, we have more than 3 million Ukrainians in Poland, and as a result, in Poland we've got more than 40 million people, which is the biggest number of people in Poland after the Second World War. So that's absolutely the scale, showing the scale of this situation. During the first month, it was 1.5 million people just floating to Poland, and so many questions arise at the beginning, such as legal status, such as how to organize shelter, how to organize sanctuary, what about public services, what about the role of local and national government in this crisis. What kind of legal and organizational tool we need to manage this situation, and of course many more that just grow up in each day. So just to show you an example, that in Warsaw we have 469,000 Ukrainians, in Krakow 229, in Katowice 302,000, in Gdańsk 223,000, in Wrocław 302,000, and in Rzeszów 152,000. Rzeszów, a large number of people staying there for more than 50% during the first month. And so that's the first preliminary data that we have using geotyping methodology. So it was counted by using cell phones and direct communication from Poland to Ukraine, as well as this SIM cards that Ukrainians have been given when they entered Poland. So building on that, what action has taken place? So the biggest and the most I would say impressive thing that we experienced was grassroots movements. So thousands of people organize, as well as local governments, to help in any way, meaning organize transport from those who cross border, open their private homes, shelters, collecting actually everything that was needed in this first days, like clothes, money, medicines, food. In terms of demography, it's of course it was mostly women and children that crossed the border, so it's a completely different kind of people who came to Poland than in previous years, when it was mostly young men and women who are who travel to Poland just to find out work. And as I said, in terms of geography, it was mostly the biggest cities, and the idea was to fight any place, but according to collected information, we can say that it's the closest the borders, the better, because the prediction was that war wouldn't last for long, and they would like to come back to Ukraine. Building on that, I am going to the point number 2, how it works in terms of local and public administration in Poland. I think that the biggest threat was how to coordinate central and local level organization, public administration. Of course, the biggest hit was on this local level, and of course these local governments react very swiftly, very quickly, do everything. They've done everything they could to help, and of course in the first couple of days, the first month, that was absolutely enough to answer the questions for these basic challenges. However, in long term, we need some kind of coordination and support to these local governments, so that some national legislation has been introduced. Legal actions from European Union was highly desirable, meaning that we needed some kind of legal status for those who crossing the borders looking for shelter in Poland. And of course, another thing was accessibility or openness for public services in Poland for those who are not Polish citizens or has not any legal status in Poland. So the biggest thing that has been done was just introducing or giving Ukrainians national identity number, which in Poland is called PESEL, that allows you to take equal access to all public services, education, health service, social services, free access to public transport, right to work in Poland, and it was of course a huge logistical challenge, because you have to imagine that more than 3 million or vast majority of this number need this kind of national identity number. So simultaneously we have to think about this procedural administrative things that was absolutely necessary to to make another step and organize public services. A part of this coordination on central and local level, there's also another thing that is that this crisis shows. I mean, the importance of some kind of social infrastructures, and that's absolutely necessary if you want to tackle this kind of challenges. It was in some way similarly like 2 or 3 years ago that public administration wasn't enough to face these challenges and to provide public services alone. So many kinds of grassroots movements, NGOs, or any other just bottom-up initiative need coordination. Of course, we can be proud that 3 million people find shelter and secure in Poland, but this actions and provided by individuals still have to be coordinated. So it shows us that different kind of voluntary coordination on local level provided by local governments is absolutely a must if we want to face this kind of things. So I think it's highly desirable to think about some kind of infrastructure of local partner, some kind of revision how we cooperate with NGOs and grassroots movements. Do we know how they work, what kind of means they have in their disposals in order to help others, or to exchange information between public administration and this kind of partners. Because without them, it's pretty sure that public administration would be overwhelmed and fail to react swiftly on this massive scale challenge. So that's the second recommendation. And the third recommendation is collecting data about actions and people just crossing the border. Of course, the first and the most important need is to secure and give a shelter and sanctuary for people crossing the border, but in longer term the problem is that we have to wait many weeks in order to learn what kind of people crossing Polish borders, and as a result the problem was how to address their needs and react in terms of large scale build a large scale help and reactions and introduce some kind of measures and policies without proper data about them. So that shows that if we think about resilience of public administration, when we think about facing this kind of challenge, what we need is ability and skills and knowledge how to quickly collect data about this challenge, this kind of challenges, because without that we can't build policies and use all the tools that public administration has in their disposal to address this issue. So in conclusions, I'd like to highlight these three recommendations. What this crisis teach us is that central and local government relations is a key. So multi-level government and governance, actually, from local to national, but also on international level, is absolutely important. The second thing is this: all of those things that help us to better manage this relation relations between public administration and external actors such as NGOs, grassroots movements, local leaders, that are absolutely hard to overvalue the energy, the time, the knowledge, and means that they use to help others. And the third thing is ability to collect information. These three things, from my perspective, are very important when it comes to public administration management. Finally, thank you once again. I'm really happy to answer for your questions. So if you have any, please drop me an email. And I try to prepare my article about this situation in Poland as soon as possible, and I hope that would be a great chance to discuss the topic that I present you today. And thank you, a good conference, and I hope see you soon in person in Vilnius. Thank you very much.
Dėkojame profesoriui Robertui Gawlowski.
We thank the Professor Robert Gawlowski. Unfortunately, we don't have a possibility to ask questions. I think that we would have questions because this is the topic that is relevant to Lithuania, although we don't have such a scale of refugees, but it would be very useful to learn from the experience of Poland. But if you have any questions, you can write an email to a professor. Professor promised to send us an article that he has written for a journal.
Taip. Ir sekantis pranešimas.
Our next presentation is on another topic. Professor Dr. Gusara Januzbekova from the Academy of Public Administration under the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, and doctoral student Ruslan Hamitov will be speaking on modern problems of implementation of public procurement in Kazakhstan. Hello.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues.
We have the possibility of translation from the Russian language. Are you going to speak Russian or English?
We are speak from English, but the question we are answering the Russian. Okay?
Okay.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I am very glad to participate in such an interesting conference. Today, very interesting topics on public administration and are being discussed at the conference. Glad to get to know my colleagues, Vainis and Alexandras. We basically know you only by correspondence by email. Today, our topic is devoted to a study that we conducted on problems in the public procurement system. Our topics about the modern problems of implementation of public procurements in Kazakhstan. The public procurement is very difficult problems in our country. Any state system is a single structure consisting of institutions and organizations responsible for the organization of socio-economic structures of society and the results of its strategy and tactics. Given the fact that the fundamental component of public administration and is national security, corruption risks and in the public procurement system can affect the stability of socio-economic systems. Today, the Kazakhstan has been actively working to improve its public procurement system and maximize its potential now. And in recent years, significant change have been made to the legislation of public procurements. According now to the Minister of Finance of the Republic of Kazakhstan in 2020, state purchases we made in Kazakhstan for a total amount of approximately 349.1 trillion tenge, national tenge, which was noticeably higher 22% than in 2015. This once again underlines the fact that state structures in Kazakhstan have a very significant economic impact. The volume of procurements in the quasi-public sector exceed the volume of strictly public procurements by 6-8 times, and more than 55% of all crimes in the quasi-public sector are committed in the field of procurement. The next slide, public procurement volumes. In 2060, the amount allocated for procurements was $3.8 billion. By 2021, this amount amounted to $10.7 billion. Public procurement contracts account for the largest share of GDP and the state budget of any country. The volume of public procurements in the OECD countries is approximately 10 or 12% of GDP, which makes them a key economic activity. On average, from the experience of the World Survey, in many countries, the volume of public procurements range from 6% to 20%, depending on economic factors. In Kazakhstan, the share of public procurements in 7 or 10% relative to GDP. Such data in itself justifies the need to monitor the works of public procurement systems. Corruption not only reduces the efficiency of public administration, but also negatively affects the investment climate in the country as a whole, hinders the development of various socio-economic systems, including the public procurement system. It's now our most corruption offenses relate to the distribution of tenders, the illegal conclusion of contracts, the declaration of fictitious acts of work performed, the conclusion of additional agreements to public procurement contracts, and the overpricing of works, goods, and services. Essentially, this process represents the embezzlement of budget funds allocated for the repair, construction, and reconstruction of facilities, as well as a bribery when lobbying for the interest of individual suppliers. In the next slides, you see Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. In the Transparency Kazakhstan 2021, according the results of 2021, Kazakhstan received 37 points out of 100 possible in the Transparency International Corruption Perceptions Index, taking 102 place among 118 countries. And this problem is very difficult in our country, and our if we are to consider the structure of corruption offensive in the sectoral contents of one can observe that 140 offenses we committed in the construction of state facilities, 19 in the housing of and utility sectors, 77 in the education sector, 36 in the healthcare sectors, and so on. And and now the monitoring of public procurements makes sense only if it is carried out of the certain period of time and using the same of similar methodologies or a combination of methodologies. And this problem is difficult in our country. And now, and as you can see, there are a lot of problems in this area. Next, I would like to convey the speech to my doctoral student, PhD candidate. She is work as senior officer of the Anti-Corruption Agency of the Republic of Kazakhstan. He will talk more deeply about the problems in this area. Thank you.
Good afternoon, dear participants of the conference. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this conference for the opportunity to speak and talk about my topic. The topic I'm going to talk about is one of the relevant topics in the current condition. Anti-corruption monitoring in the public procurement system is one of the most important areas of study state policy. I apologize for my English. If it is not clear, please just stop me and you can ask. So let me introduce myself. Yes, a teacher, Gulsara Shirbayev. I'm a senior officer of the anti-corruption service, and at the same time, I study at the academy in the direction of the Doctor of Public Administration. Corruption not only reduces the efficiency of public administration, but also negatively affects the investment climate in the country. Hinders the development of various socio-economic systems, including the public procurement system. As Gulsara Shirbayevna said above, public procurement is interconnected between many industries, such as security, socio-economic factors, international trade, and many other areas. So in this slide, I would like to show possible corruption risk at the procurement stages. We present 5 stages of procurement, from planning, contract till execution and payment. If you see here, from first to 5. And next slide, I would like to talk about the main types of corruption risk in the procurement, such as manipulation of the technical specification for certain suppliers of public procurement, from a single source for failed purchases, systematic overestimations of prices, corruption risk in the acceptance of goods and works, and one of the common risks is corruption risk moves to the stage when the customer accepts the goods or works from the suppliers nowadays. How to see in this slide, I would like to say about dynamics of corruption crime in Kazakhstan. In 2021, we see in Kazakhstan decreased by 29%. If you pay attention to the diagram below, data on stolen money and returned. So from 2019 till 2022, you see 10, for example, in 2021 was money stolen $10 million and retrieved $8 million. In next slide, I would like to say about structure of corruption criminal offenses in the field of public procurement in Kazakhstan in the sectoral content in 2020. In the sectoral context, 140 offenses were committed in the construction of state facilities, 90 in the housing and communal services, 77 in education, in 32 in healthcare. And by 2021 and 22, and healthcare can be very important things, because the pandemic, corona, everyone know, and the corruption there very, very high, and we pay attention for these areas. In next slide, I would like to say about anti-corruption prevention service is engaged in the analysis and monitoring of corruption risk in the field of public procurement. One of the monitoring tools is the single procurement window system. If you see the analytical capabilities of the system allow you to automatically identify risk during procurement, such as the conclusion and execution of contracts in a short time, inflated prices for goods, suppliers, activities, affiliations, technical specification field, invoice and error, and others. And in this slide describes in more detail and analytical capabilities of monitoring. For example, here, median price, dynamics of procurement by field, regions by region, by period, analysis of the largest customer suppliers for all sites, and etc. For example, for 2021 was monitoring by this program system 10,000 contracts. And also, next slide, I would like to say about our sociological survey. In addition, we conducted a social survey on public procurement portal. The number of the respondents was more than 6,200 participants in public procurement. In this social survey, there were more than 24 questions. For example, the question of the what stage of the procurement corruption is most often manifested, response answer as follows, like 24% stage of contract execution upon accept of goods or works, or 24% also preparation documents. And when asked about the level of corruption in the procurement system of the Republic of Kazakhstan, respondents replied that 14% of corruption is at a high level. The conducted social research suggests that there is corruption procurement in Kazakhstan, and we need to carry out more measures aimed at improving tools to eradicate corruption. And in our conclusion, I would like to say that the public procurement sector is one of the important factors of economic development, which is directly achieved by an integrated approach of the management system and transparency of the procurement procedure, and take such measures as training and development of human resources of public procurement, employees, improvement of digital technologies in the procurement system, open access to civil society for monitoring public procurement, and conducts international training and seminars for advanced training on the topic of procurement. So, dear participants, thank you very much for giving chance to show my slides. And if you have any question, please ask.
Здравствуйте, дорогие коллеги из Казахстана. Я сначала задам вопрос по-литовски для нашей аудитории, а потом на русском. Мам, хорошо? Нoriu paklausti kolegos, kokia dalis viešųjų pirkimų
What part of public procurements goes to outsourcing or from external sources? Is Kazakhstan ordering something from external sources, or do you engage in only internal?
Связан с аутсорсингом. В Казахстане государственные закупки, они все делаются из внутренних источников, или вы заказываете часть услуг, товаров, ну, не знаю, что-то вот на уровне государственных закупок путем аутсорсинга? Вопрос понятен? То есть из внешних источников, не из внутренних ресурсов вашей страны. Вы можете на такой
do you
вопрос ответить?
engage in public procurement
Да,
from the external or
спасибо
external
за такой
sources?
вопрос. Если я вас
Thank you
правильно
for your
понял,
question.
на
If
сегодняшний
I
день Казахстан
understand you
сотрудничает
correctly,
с многими
now
государствами.
Kazakhstan is cooperating with many
С Украиной, к примеру,
countries.
взять программу Прозоро,
For
что мы
example,
вот
with
также
Ukraine,
взяли некоторые моменты для
we have
мониторинга,
Prozor
как бы
program,
сотрудничаем. Если вы имеете
and we
заключение договоров, то в
also
рамках
were
ЕС
engaged in
также мы сотрудничаем с странами
monitoring
ЕАЭС,
this program.
если я правильно
In
вас
terms
понял.
of
Если же по
concluding
сопровождению самой
contracts, we
системы, да,
also
мы сотрудничаем с многими
cooperate
странами.
with
Южная
EU
Корея,
countries.
Сингапур, Украина, вот эти передовые страны.
Я
We
имел в виду
also
вот
cooperate
государственные
with
закупки, когда
Singapore,
вам надо какие-то услуги
Korea.
заказывать, они все, или даже те же
Нет, есть аутсорсинг, есть
Well, I
Yes,
have in
of
mind
course.
public
Yes.
procurement. Yes, we do have outsourcing.
К примеру, я могу даже один пример принести. В 2021
I can give you an example. In 2021,
программу как бы с аутсорсинга
in
вносили и
healthcare
внедряли в этом
sector,
направлении даже.
we
примерно какая
purchased
часть,
information
по
technology
вашему
program.
мнению, ну, процентуально, если выражение, вот 100%, то какая часть была бы из внешних источников, не из внутренних ресурсов страны?
Извиняюсь.
Процентуально, если спросить вас, какая...
Процентуально, я думаю, небольшой процент. Нет, небольшой процент. 30% мы можем взять вот так.
I think that
20%.
3% is
Спасибо
outsourcing
большое.
in the healthcare sector.
Ačiū.
Большое
you.
вам спасибо за вашу презентацию.
For your presentation.
Спасибо.
До встречи.
Вам спасибо большое.
Taip, sekantis pranešimas mums didelis džiaugsmas pristatyti
And
sekančią
our
mūsų
next
pranešimo sekcijos
presentation
dalyvę.
Will be made
Tai yra profesorė daktarė
by Professor Dr. Natalia Gavkalova
iš
from
Charkovo Simono Kuzneco nacionalinio
Simon
ekonomikos
Kuznets Kharkiv National University of Economics in Ukraine.
Skaitoma tema yra
The topic of the presentation is adaptation of educational and environmental strategies of society for new conditions of circular economy.
Miela Natalija, доброго дня.
So the floor is yours, Professor Natalia.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, can you hear me? Yes. First of all, I would like to congratulate you on the conference because only cooperation, collaboration, and close connection between government, between local authorities, between business and citizens can provide the positive result and can provide the country development. And secondly, I would like to thank you for your attitude, for your support, for your help, because 5 of our students from the university, the students of Program of Public Administration, now these students are in your university. So thank you very much for providing all conditions for the continuation of education, and thank you very much for the friendly environment, because I got only positive impressions, only positive information from our students. Thank you very much. Professor Vainius Smarskis, because you were the first person, one of the first person who invited me, who supported me, who sent us the different information about the different programs of support. And really, thank you very much, all people all over the world, because after our situation, only your support and your help could help us to survive, and due to your support, I am here today. I am not in Ukraine, but I plan to return to Ukraine. Now I am in Poland, and thank you very much, my Poland colleagues who invited me to and who support me. Before the previous report, the colleagues from Warsaw, his report was very close for our problems, because the situation, according to Ukrainian immigration, really, this situation is not very easy all over the world, but first of all, for countries who are near the Ukraine. So thank you very much. And really, if the situation is changed, I can continue to describe you the different points or different problems in our public administration, Ukrainian public administration. But now our only problem, the most important problem, is our war. So I cannot, I don't want to connect public administration and this abnormal situation, this aggression, and this war, this country aggressor. So I would like to avoid the problem in Ukrainian public administration, and to share the information about our vision of circulate economy, because this problem is new, this problem is very actual, and we are at the process of preparation of new project, and I hope that your university will be our partner in our future projects. I am sure that everything will be the best in nearest future. So I would like to demonstrate my presentation first of all, and just a moment. Could you see my presentation or not? Yes? Yes. Thank you so much. And my presentation is about circular economy, and I would like to start just a moment. I would like to use format of my screen, but it is very difficult. Why this problem? Why circular economy? Really, this problem now is very actual. Why? No, because the transition of society to the sixth technological system is accompanied by the spread of the global economic crisis. Really, I remember that during my life there were a lot of economic crisis, and starting with 2019 or 2018, starting with COVID crisis, we can make the conclusion, or we could make the conclusion that the situation changed, and now economy all over the world, economy demonstrate us the decline or negative tendencies. So we can make the conclusion that according to the scientific research of Department of Economic and Social Affairs in 2021, the population growth rate increased significantly, reaching 1.23%. The population amounted to almost 8 trillion persons, which is more than projected by 53 million people. The growth of the Earth's population depends upon the problem of limited all resources, really. First of all, non-renewable natural resources. In addition, strong marketing activity, behavioral economy, market principles of the interaction of economic entities have led to separation of business interest from public, rapid growth of production and consumption, as well as increased economic inequality. Existing economic models and concept of beginning to get out of control, so the new concept created and new models of economic growth, new models were created and are at the process of creation now. So the analysis of scientists' works allowed to reveal approaches to define the essence of cyclical economy or circulating economy as a model of economic development, the basis of which is the rational use of resources and their recovery, an alternative to the traditional or linear economy based on three principles of 3R. Reduction of consumption, reduce and recycling, reduce and recycle. An industrial system that is restored on generated by design and construction, and economic model in which both the result and the actual processes of resource supply and production are planned and organized in such a way as to maximize the human well-being and efficiency of ecosystem. During realization of our research, we took into account the latest scientific approaches and the review of research induced us to formulate our new hypothesis and enlarge the research sphere. What about this hypothesis? For Ukrainian society, the first hypothesis is that Ukrainian society is at the stage of forming a system of values which can lay the foundation for the transition to a model of a circular economy. The second hypothesis, education as a social institution has a significant impact on the implementation of the concept of sustainable development and circular economy, as it ensures the formation of environmental and economic consciousness, values, culture of society, and higher postgraduate education, training, and other forms of education. So we decided to research to define our Ukrainian peculiarities of educational strategy and strategy on and economic strategy, and at the end of our scientific research, we would like to get the results according to get the result, and with the help of these results, we would like to explain the tendencies and to describe the Ukrainian features or our features, to implement the result of this description at the level of state public administration and the level of local authorities, and to change the process of formation strategy at the state level and at the level of local authorities, at the level of united territorial communities. the organization and conduct of study included 3 stages. Which kind of stages we used? First of all, we collected of primary sociologist information, sociological information. The next, we used the stage of information processing, and the last, it was analysis of received information, generalization of conclusions, preparations of the recommendation. So with the help of this research, we can get information about the situation in educational sphere and situation in economic according to this circulation economy in Ukraine. Really, our research, our methodology, we started to realize in January 2021. It was attended by 74 respondents who are representatives of the educational environment. It was the representative of higher education, teachers, educators, scientists, of whom with different title and different ages. The study was conducted using online survey, using the Google Forms tools. The questionnaire contained questions on awareness and understanding of essence of the cyclical economy. The results of sociological survey show the representative of the educational environment, for example, our Kharkiv region, Ukraine, and we got the information about the percentage of about the level of education of our respondents on circular economy. We cannot make the conclusion that a lot of persons understand the peculiarities of circular economy, understand the principle of functioning of circular economy, even understand the essence or the nature of circular economy. Online survey shows, so you can see on this slide, online survey shows that the majority of respondents see the purpose of their work as income, 78% creating a comfortable living environment, 67% self-development and interaction with people, creation of useful products for people. In general, 62 and 5% of respondents believe that entrepreneurs should increase the economy efficiency of their activities, receive more income, pay taxes, assistance. There is a major for the state. According to 47 and 2% of respondents, it is necessary to deduct part of the profit for socially important matter, and 45 and 8%. This is also necessary to deal with the preservation of the environment. And on the next slide, I would like to show you. Assess the importance of value of the educational environment. So you can see the different percent in on this slide, and assessment of your readiness to sort garbage. It's extract according to our questionnaire, and we got really very interesting results, and we can make the conclusion that one of the way out of the global crisis of today in many countries is a transition to a cyclical or circulated economy. The analysis of literature sources revealed the wide attention and diversity to approach to determine the nature and definition of circular economy. In particular, scientists consider the category of cyclical economy as a model of economic development, as alternative to traditional linear economy, industrial system that is beginning restructured on regenerated economic model aimed at ensuring economic prosperity, efficiency of ecosystem, human well-being. Really, we made the conclusion that the level of educational level of our respondent, according to the answer to the question, what do you think about the circulating economy, is not very high. So we proposed the different activity at a different level. At the starting with the state level and ending the level of educational institutions, of universities, because the university take a very important role at the process of providing knowledge about circular economy too. At the state level, we would like to add these necessary elements of circular economy to the process of formation of strategy of country. And at the level of Ministry of Education, we proposed to renew our programs, first of all, program public administration, and to provide the new educational content according to public administration plus circular economy. So it can be created new bachelor or new master programs. In general, we can make the conclusion that in Ukraine there are a lot of problems. I made the report some years ago. Really, thank you very much that every year you invited me. And I made the report, I remember, about the problem of united territorial communities, because there were only the first steps of the reform of decentralization in Ukraine. I proposed during the previous year, I remember I proposed some information about corruption. So we have a lot of problems. The law is the most important problem, but we can understand that all problems really can be solved. And now we would like to share the information about economic crisis, about the new ways of struggle against new economic crisis. And we would like to share our understanding and the results of our scientific research, because the new understanding, new knowledge, new skills and abilities on circular economy can help us, not only citizens, but all institutions at the state and level of local authority, maybe not to avoid the influence of crisis, because only circular economy or only knowledge cannot avoid, but really our understanding of circular economy can help us and can help the officials on the state and the level of local authorities to realize the new decision making, to formate the new competences of new representative of public administration. If we creates a new educational program in our universities, and to share the information about behavior people, or about new about the peculiarities of new life, because circular economy demands the new vision of our traditional life and new behavior from everybody, from every citizen. I would like to first of all thank you for attention. Then this logo, I used the different logos and together with Ukrainian flag and with the logo of the Department Public Administration and Regional Economy Department of the Simon Kuznets Kharkiv National University of Economics, I used our Erasmus Plus logo because we are the participants of Erasmus Plus program, money model, and I'm coordinator of this model. And according to this report was prepared by Yulia Lola. She visited Lithuania the last time we were together, and me, Natalia Gavkalova. Thank you so much for your attention. If you have any questions, I can answer all of questions. I'm so sorry for my internet connection. Really, my internet connection is not stable, but I tried. Thank you. Please, your questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Aš norėčiau užduoti klausimą.
I'd like to give you a question. When it comes to your research, the first hypothesis that you have mentioned, you mentioned that you talked about the value system in the circular economy. What values did you have in mind?
Values, it's kind. I would like just a moment. I would like to return to this slide. We realize our scientific research, and what about the value system? I propose you on this slide such kind of value as family, welfare, assistance to the part of the population in need, social and economic development of the state, protection of the region's ecology, and safe environment. And we propose this questionnaire before the war. And after the war started, we continued our research, and we proposed the same questionnaire for other respondents, and asked to remind this questionnaire for our previous respondent, and we got the information that the war provided the high level of the majority, not the majority, the most influence. Now it is family welfare. Before the war, the situation was a little bit changed. The first position is family welfare, then 62.5% safe environment, and then social and economic development of the state. The greatest value, 91% and 91.7% of responded is the well-being of the family. No, really, this result demonstrates us the Ukrainian values, and I think that Ukrainian society, that our beliefs and our new priorities can help us, and will provide us to live not only survive, but to be the best. Really, I try to, I don't try to connect all of this value with the war, but I remember that we prepared this questionnaire before the war and after the war, and we got a little bit different results. So for me, really, it's very difficult, but I can connect our result with the result of scientific research of Ukrainian sociology Eduard Afonin. He published his book Ukrainian Diva, or Ukrainian, it's in Ukraine, Ukrainian Divo, or Ukrainian Diva, or Ukrainian in Russian, Ukrainian Chuda. And he gave his hypothesis was that only Ukrainian archetypes, only Ukrainian, the system of values, the system of traditions, only our attitude to each other, only our attitude to our family, and only our relationships can help us. We are strong only together. So after the war, our system and norms of values was changed.
Thank you very much for your answer. Thank you.
Gerbiama Natalija, ačiū Jums.
Dear Natalia, thank you for your participation. We do understand how difficult period is both for you and for your country. We are grateful for giving your time for us and for presenting the topic for us. Thank you indeed. And now we have...
Thank you.
And now we have the last keynote speaker. This will be Professor Dr. Raimundas Kalesnikas, Senior Policy Analyst from the Government Strategic Analysis Center Strata, and the Professor in the Faculty Law of Kazimieras Simonavičius University in Lithuania. He's going to speak about the resilience of the public sector in tackling the migration crisis, mistakes and lessons learned.
Reikia vaizdo ar nereikia?
Tai buvo šakė.
Ne, aš turiu minį, kadangi jau skaidrėm dalinuosi. Matosi, aš tik noriu per visą ekraną. O ten nerodo pas man, tai per visą ekraną rodo. Bet jūs neda jūsų. Tak minutėlę. Palaukit. Aš kalbu. Iš naujo. Matot, pas man tai juda, o kai aš rodau dalyviam, nejuda jisai. Matot? Gerai, dar kartą aš. Ne, nejuda. Palaukit, aš. Aš čia. Taip, čia. Aš kaip leidus skaidrį demonstravimą, nerodo, matot, aš matau kitokį vaizdą, negu matot jūs. Ne vienodas, matot, šonė nematau. Žiūrėkit, aš dabar skaidrį demonstravimą darau. Nuo pradžios. Matot, pas mane visas. Nu tada aš turėsiu naudoti. Pažiūrim, ar keičiasi taip. O, keičiasi. Nu tada tokią naudosiu. Tada padarysim taip, truputį sumažinsiu. Gerai, o mano vaizdas mato pranešėjai ir įsijungti čia Zoom'o reikia. Matosi, taip, matot jūs mane.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, organizers of the conference. I thank you for the invitation to this conference. This is not the first time for me to take part in this interesting conference, which has become annual, and it discusses best practice on the international level, and this public sector and the public management in the global world can be researched on different levels. I represent the public law position, but my experience both in science and in different management processes is intertwined, and my interdisciplinary field of research is a priority for me. I will be speaking in Lithuanian, and fortunately I have an opportunity to participate in this conference physically and to speak in person. So my presentation is in the Lithuanian language because I used to speak English in 2 years. The slides will be in the English language. Experience, resilience of the public sector in tackling the migrant crisis, mistakes and lessons learned. Today we had the opportunity to see the experience of other countries. Today I would like to speak about the management of migration crisis. I had the opportunity to work in the Ministry of the Interior, and I finished my responsibilities and service in March this year. And I had a great opportunity to touch upon the practical sphere. In practice, unfortunately, it's not that simple, but it helps to substantiate certain conclusions and to forecast the future in order to avoid the mistakes. My topic is focused on the message whether is the public sector really resilient in addressing different crises. Today we can see that resilience is a very popular concept, and its popularity rose during the first crisis. Lithuania faced other types of crises, which is migration crisis, irregular migration flows going through Lithuania to other EU countries, which actually threatened national security and other processes in our country. And now we are facing a real refugee crisis, and the public sector again has to change its orientation. Today I will speak on one aspect only, the irregular migration crisis faced by Lithuania, Latvia and Poland. Why do we call it a migration crisis? For countries such as Greece don't see it as migration crisis, because in 2015 and 2016, when 2 million people attempted to illegally enter Greece from Turkey during the Syrian conflict. Therefore, the numbers that we have seem quite small, but we have to bear in mind the territorial and regional context. We could never imagine that we would face such a problem. And after the migration crisis in Greece in 2015 and 2016 in the Mediterranean, Lithuania tried to prepare for it, and this preparation showed certain consequences. Now, hybrid attack, this is a new term that is used in the public sector. What is the form of hybrid attack? This is a category that is used in public sector. This is a new military term. Hybrid attack, introduction of the hybrid attack in the public administration is something new, and in September last year, the European Commission said that the hybrid attack can be used as a crisis, and the public sector should be resilient and should be prepared for worse scenarios. Lithuania took certain decisions on push over of regular migrants. Lithuanian State Border Protection Service was involved in the process. It has managed the situation quite well. The risks and threats after the decision, you can see the consequence in 3 countries. This slide shows the attempts of illegal crossing of the border. So you can see these illegal attempts to enter the territory, not only in Lithuania, but also in Poland. In conclusion, for over a year, we have had about 10,000 attempts to enter the territory of Lithuania. If we take the numbers in Poland and Latvia, we have 40,000 illegal attempts to enter. Unless we had a different policy of management of migration flows, the numbers could be different. The security situation is quite good, but what happened when Lithuania allowed 40,000 of people to enter our territory? My message is that the Lithuanian public sector was faced with a challenge. First, to manage the flows of irregular migration at the external border of the EU, and at the same time to ensure people that crossed the Lithuanian border and applied for asylum. And this disbalance caused some issues of whether the public sector was ready to address the increasing numbers of asylum applications. So far, before that, Lithuania would have from 30 to 40 cases of asylum applications. And in several months, the situation has changed dramatically. And public administration therefore faced certain mistakes, especially during the asylum management mechanism, when the asylum system works ad hoc. The crisis management plans, we have also threat management plans, and so on. We had different trainings and exercise on that of possible influx of 40,000 immigrants. And finally, in practice, we saw that the system cannot function that easily. I analyzed some political processes, and I've noticed that regulatory environment was not adapted to the situation. The regulatory environment were exposed. The regulations that we had were not adapted to the situation that we faced. And in 6 months, the respective law was amended 3 times. I've also noticed that asylum management mechanism was inflexible. What do you have in mind? It means that different public administration institutions overlapped in their activities. Migration Department, State Border Protection Service, and Refugee Center overlapped in their functions, and this created some additional problems in terms of asylum management. And the balance of coordination of asylum processes. We had to take political decisions in managing the asylum system. On the one hand, we might think that the management of asylum system is the responsibility of the Ministry of the Interior. But when we have in mind the conditions of acceptance, then the Ministry of Social Security and Labor should also be responsible here. And here we see the disbalance of responsibilities. And we also saw some competition, institutional competition. The burden of the implementing of decisions was actually put on different institutions. Camps had to be selected and camps had to be built for people. But unfortunately, the ministries and municipalities did not agree on whose responsibility that was. And this dilemma has not been solved so far in terms of the responsibility of the management of the mechanism.
50 prašymų per metus išnagrinėti, 4000 priimti prieglobsčio prašymų ir jų išnagrinėti per mėnesį.
And in a month, the institutions were faced with 4,000 asylum applications, and it was a huge burden for the institutions lacking human resources. And human resources were inflexible. And it showed that the public sector was inflexible itself. These were 5 components that I've described. But it also affected us and helped us to learn some lessons. And I use the OSCE recommendation on resilience. I want to show you in the English language. Was the public sector prepared to deal with a state of emergency tackling migrant crisis?
Ar čia reikalingas planas iš anksto, ar ne? Atviras klausimas, mano požiūrį.
Did we have to have an advanced plan?
Ne tik Lietuva, bet ir Europos Sąjunga. Tai visų pirma,
first of all,
aš gal čia ne iš eiliškumo, bet esmė tame, kad pirmas, teisėkūros procesas.
First of all, the legislative process should be harmonized. The EU should play by the same standard for all. So the EU acquis on the asylum exists in the consideration phase, and this instrument has to be enabled so that the public sector works according to the human rights rules, international human rights order. What else do we need? Transformation of the migration and asylum ecosystem in general, not only in the EU but in Lithuania too. In Lithuania we had no shocks, and the system worked ad hoc. But this transformation actually is it makes an effect on several factors: institutions, services, processes, and people. Can we prepare a good evidence-based strategy on the national level? Evidence-based decision-making is very important. And this is a systemic approach, a holistic vision, and strategic empowerment, and as well as planning. Competencies and building capacities and competences to operate in a resilient environment is also very important. And my message is, we have many plans in the healthcare sector, but these plans have not been communicated or clear. Should we have a response mechanism through national resilience agenda in the public sector? Yes and no, we need further research on that. Today, the consolidation of the management functions of the migration and asylum system is needed. Lithuania is not Greece or the Netherlands that has the system and experience in asylum. It depends on quality, effectiveness, professionalism, and leadership. And who is a leader in this field? This is an open question. And I see a practical solution. I support the model of making the public sector efficient, flexible, mobile. You know all those terms. And we need to go through the agency building model. In policy making and in policy implementation, this should be made. In policy implementation, we should have one owner of the process, one agency that would deal not only with the flows of illegal migration. Today, we see many ministries responsible for managing migrants, including the Ministry of the Interior, the Ministry of Social Security and Labor. The European Union has activated the directive on Ukraine, but what happens next? What procedures we have? If numbers increase, if we need integration, if we need registration, do we have this response mechanism targeted at the future? Well, I spoke only about one thing. We face many challenges, and solutions have been proposed by experts, and scientists are very eager to propose an effective model of addressing the issue. Thank you. I am willing to answer your question. Thank you, Professor. Any questions from the audience? No? I have a question.
tokia kaip ir diskusijai paklausti profesorius, kodėl jūs tai, ką identifikavote savo skaidrėse, vadinate klaidomis.
Why do you call these as mistakes on your slides? I think that these are challenges in the face of a certain situation, and we have to look for solutions or mechanisms, as you say. And then the country faces challenges that it needs to solve. So why do you call them mistakes in your presentation? And question number 2 is, do you really think that a unified response is possible, bearing in mind that every country has its own specific characters, mentality, and other factors? Do you really believe in that personally? Thank you for your questions. Why concerning the first question? Well, during my presentation, I said challenges, not mistakes. While public institutions claim they have been prepared for the crisis, for different scenarios, but different mistakes were made in terms of funds and relations with municipalities. When people opposed, for example, the installation of camps for irregular migrants. Well, actually, the mistake is working ad hoc. Reactive approach, not a proactive, but a reactive approach. Well, we really had mistakes, but we lack actually analytical competencies in the public sector among those who build policy, policymakers, with public policymakers intertwined. Now, concerning the second question, do I really believe in this? Yes, I do. I visited both Greece, the Netherlands, and other countries. I analyzed their situation.
Vidaus reikalų ministro ir teisingumo ministro ir Europos komisarės dėmesys tai yra bendras atsako mechanizmas, sako bendras.
And the European Commission says that we need a unified response.
Solidarumo mechanizmas įsijungia.
We have a solidarity mechanism, distribution mechanism, funding mechanism. And we also speak about the standard of the external border protection, because not all the countries have this external border. So what the standard means: building a fence, funding, surveillance, as well as border procedures and changes. Because the EU migration and asylum package also go towards unification. And your question on whether every country can deal with the issue independently. Yes, we have different cultural integrational aspects. But in terms of asylum, we have to have a unified system. If we have 2/3 of Iraqi citizens and we cannot return them to their country of origin, is our society ready to integrate them? I think that this is a separate topic outside the scope of this conference. While the discussions have been very interesting, we could discuss even more, but unfortunately we have run out of time in our conference, and I would like to conclude and say that from today's discussions, it is evident that in times of crisis, public sector organizations, the resilience of society and the state is ability to notice, to establish the crisis and to be able to recreate the normal functioning is very important field for scientists and practitioners. And therefore, we're very glad that we had a possibility to share the experience from different countries, and we hope for further cooperation and invite you to the next conference on public administration. Professor, maybe you would like to say something. Yes, I agree with you. Our conferences are dedicated to challenges. I don't like this word. And next year we will have different external threats. Maybe we will face some new current challenges, and therefore I invite you all to contribute to our work in analyzing the current developments. Thank you.
Nu ką dabar kas, dar čia liepia pasilikti.